edge, the sharp edge on the incisor. I still see this time and time and time again. Please, if you can, just get out a Softlex disc, get out a silicone wheel, whatever you do, please round off those angles. Anything sharp with ceramics spells trouble. Anything thin with ceramics spells trouble. All right, so we put them on articulators, and you sort of see we've got 3/4 of a millimetre space, and we need 1.5 to 2 millimetres. What do we do then? What do you think we should do? Would you prefer to get a phone call and sort of say, well, we haven't got enough room? Do you then say, well, do your best you can? Or do you sort of say, oh, it doesn't matter, I'll stick it in and what do I do? I'll grind it and oppose. Now, a lot of people do it. Do we all do that from time to time? Of course we do. If we look in the mirror, how many people have not ground the opposing tooth away? In silence. Yeah, okay, fair enough. That's true. I mean, we all do that. Let's face it, we do it. How many times would we prefer that we sort of say we're going to make a Duralay reduction coating and we're going to send it back to you? When you actually get it back, you pop it on the abutment and we say, just trim that back. So what would you prefer? I mean, I think that's the best option. I generally can't do too much damage. Now, when that little Duralay pattern comes back and you slide it onto the abutment and you've got the belly hanging out, you think, geez, why didn't I reduce that? So when you reduce that, should you reduce just the right amount or maybe a little bit more? What's your feeling on that one? Obvious. You should always do perhaps a little bit more. It's very difficult to get that right. What's it going to be filled in with anyway? Cement. And most of the cements are made up of what now? Composites. So we've got a basically flowable composite which is filling that gap in. You just got to hope that that's not in a stress-bearing area if you possibly can. Okay, we've got enough thickness of material. So I really want you to be cognizant of the following things. Wide margins, number one. See the bicycle track all the way around. And look at it, please. I mean, don't take the impression out of it and hand it to your nurse and say, send it to the lab. Please, wash it out. And I'm serious. I've seen dentists, they go like this. Pull the impression out, put it in the thing, we'll make the temporary. They don't even look at it. They don't even wash it. Wash it out, dry it out, get some magnification. And again, look at it carefully. You can see the bicycle track, that's fine. If you can't see all of it, if you can see most of it, that's probably reasonably good. But if you can see there's big chunks missing, that's disturbing. I think that Dr. Sharp, Albert, who works with me in the laboratory, the other day he showed me a scan. We're getting some people using intraoral scanners now. And we were hoping the fact that because the dentist could actually see these scans actually on the screen, that the quality of the preparations would get better. But guess what? They're taking scans now of underprepared teeth. They've spent $40,000 buying this thing, and we've still got a preparation which is not quite right. So please, if you can, stick to the rules where you possibly can at all times. Now, why did something like this go wrong? Sorry? Yeah, it's a little bit sharp there, but at least we've got enough axial raw reduction. We've got a shoulder that's pretty well defined. You look at that and I sort of think, I mean, I get these things come in. Somebody put an Emax crown in a male of about 110 kilos with no posterior tooth. Now, is there anything wrong with that? Would anybody actually sort of think this is an idea for an all-ceramic crown? What I'm suggesting to you is either client will try and convince you that this material is strong enough for everywhere, but it's not. It's really not. Not all teeth are suitable for all ceramic restorations. Again, don't get carried away in this revolution that we've got to go all ceramic. I mean, is zirconia really a ceramic? If you have a look at the periodic table, it's in the metal side. It's got aluminium oxide in it. Aluminium, is it all ceramic? No. They call it all ceramics. But here, what would have happened in a male like that, in the most posterior tooth with no support, what would you want there? Now, you as dentists, this is a classic sort of question, what would you have in your own mouth? And how many dentists would actually sort of say, full gold crown? It's really quite intriguing. Sort of, if we're really honest with ourselves, we'll often sort of say we want a full gold crown. But how many times do you actually ask a patient now, would they like a full gold crown? To be honest, I can't remember the last time I actually did a full gold crown. But nevertheless, when you ask a bunch of dentists, most of the time we say we want a full gold crown. So, I mean, maybe that's a bit unusual, but perhaps we're suggesting something for ourselves and something different for our patients. But that's an ethical issue which I'm not going near. I'm not going near. All I'm sort of saying is when you get a big guy come in like this and he's got no posterior support, don't go all ceramic. You're just asking for trouble. Okay, so look, here we go across and we look at all the materials that are currently available. And there's some stuff on here which is brand new. You see up the top right-hand corner a product called Lava Ultimate. And again, 3M are out there trying to do quite a number and convince everybody that they've called it this nano-filled ceramic resin. They use all these great words, but at the end of the day, it's a reinforced composite. And don't let anybody fool you. It's a reinforced composite. I'm going to talk a lot about 3M and the evolution of materials with 3M. They're heading in the right direction, but that's something that we need to talk about. Empress Aesthetic, very similar to the old Empress 1, which was sort of had a failure rate of about 35% in 6 years. I mean, that wasn't the best material we had. Flexural strength of about 150 MPa. Empress Aesthetic is great. We'll talk about that a bit. Emax is one obviously we need to discuss, and there's lots of different versions of Emax now. And I want you to try and understand the difference between them. Because Emax, remember that Castrol ad, oils ain't oils? Well, Emax ain't Emax either. There's lots of different types of that, which I'll run through, and I want you to really understand the difference. Procera Lumina is a sort of a fairly much from Noble Biocare, sort of that's been around for a while now. And it's sort of like, it's not really an oldie but a goodie, but it's sort of coming that way, where sort of the demand for that has dropped sort of significantly. That was great. Circa 1995 to about 2002, that was one of the best. Some people are still using it, but there are a few issues with that which aren't quite right. The big revolution, of course, is zirconia oxide. And I'm going to talk to you a lot about monolithic crowns and show you some really interesting videos and research on this. And that's under the monolithic, and then I'll show you the veneered style. That's porcelain fused to zirconia. And I want you to understand how that works and how a whole new ceramic system had to be developed, a veneering ceramic had to be developed for the zirconia infrastructures. And the good old PFMs, around since 1962. Imagine that, we should have a big celebration, the 50th anniversary of PFMs. Still an oldie but a goodie. I'll talk to you a little bit about the metals involved there and where we're heading with that. So the other day, actually, this was a friend of mine who's an architect. I actually sort of took a photo sort of something that I'd done a few years ago, and some of the work I'd done. And what I'd noticed was that this was sort of almost like a history book of some of the dentistry that I'd been doing and all the different types of materials. And this is, again, a friend of mine's an architect, and they've all worked well. This is a ceramage here. This is a ceramage inlay that I did. It's been quite successful. And this is just a standard composite, gold crown and a PFM. And look, they've all worked. Again, none of them are failures, but the question is, which one was most suitable for the right application? One of the things that sort of that I'll be mentioning quite a bit tonight is the difference between monolithic restorations and veneered and layered. And this goes for molars, this goes for premolars and for anteriors as well. Again, I want you to understand what you're getting. So, from your lab or if you work with us, I want you to understand that you can actually ask for a stained monolithic crown, or if you want to get something which is veneered and layered, I want you to understand the difference in the mechanical properties. In a situation over here, you've got one chunk, monolithic, of course, just one piece. And then over here, you've got a piece which we started off as being monolithic, but we've cut it back and we've added a veneering ceramic over the top. Now, every time that you get a join between materials, potentially you can get a weakness. Remember that. The more layers, the more joins, more things that can go wrong. So over here on this left-hand side, the monolithic restoration, this is probably where it's all heading. Why is it heading there? It's heading there because machines can make monolithic restorations. And I'm going to show you a milling machine and how it works. And is it good? It's not bad. But there's still a lot of problems with milling. A lot of problems with it. It's some of them are a little bit more difficult to circumvent than others. This technique is a great one, veneered and laid. If you get Emax, if you veneered Emax for an anterior restoration, you're going to get something which is very, very beautiful. Harder to make, more time involved, but this needs a big human sort of component here. This is the type of restoration which will look excellent. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start talking to you a little bit. I'm going to go through the softest materials through to the hardest materials. And I want you to try and understand where I'm coming from here. Being a dentist who graduated in 1978, so what's that, 34 years ago, I mean, it's pretty scary stuff now. I remember when I first graduated that I did PFM crowns in the first year or two, and didn't really have I had an idea what I was doing, but probably not much to be when I think about it. I had a guy who was working next to me helped me a hell of a lot. But I can't tell you how many times I put crowns in, VMK crowns in, and patients would come back a year later and say, gee, Dave, that crown you put on my upper left premolar, that was really good. But I'd broken the one below. And that had an MOD amalgam in it, and a cusp had come. And I saw this, and Bob, I don't know if you remember seeing the same type of thing, but we didn't really understand what was going on. The big problem was the hardness of that ceramic was causing a lot of damage. So in those days, we were putting amalgams everywhere, and amalgams, of course, were a trench through the middle of the teeth, and you've got cusps and you've got cracks everywhere. So what would happen is this very hard material on your VMK would be belting against a tooth, which had already had some cracks in it, and bingo, off came a cusp. And we did that, and then we were putting pin amalgams and pin composites and doing all sorts of stuff back in those days. It all worked well, but we weren't really aware of what was actually happening. Then we started doing some research in the early 80s, and we started to see there was a lot of drama with the hardness index. A lot of these materials, wear and hardness. So there was a bit of a move away then. They were trying to, Ivoclar in particular, wanted to go towards softer materials. Now this is very relevant to where we're heading today. I want you to really take this in. I really believe that we should, with life expectancy increasing, and we'll be treating a lot of geriatrics between 70, 75, 80, 85 and 90. The type of dentistry that we're going to be doing will be more complex. And if we started to put harder and harder materials into dentitions and people in their 30s, 40s and 50s, in my opinion, this is going to have a monstrous impact on the dentitions of older people. We've got this greying population now. 1 in 5, I saw the statistics, 1 in 5 will be over the age of 65 by 2025. Now, we're going to be doing a lot of this type of work. So all I'm saying now is if you start putting in hard materials into people, and there's a lot of products out there at the moment which are particularly hard and abrasive, which I'm going to show you in a moment, you're going to do a lot of damage. So you'll probably see some articles I've been writing, or I don't know if you have seen them, Australasian Dentist Magazine, there are quite a few of them I've been writing about, saying please be very careful where you put some of these restorations. Now the reason that I start off then with this Ceramash material is this is one made by Shofu, and this is a very impressive material. Now the Japanese, I like the Japanese material manufacturers because they tend to be very cautious, very conservative, and what they've done is they've actually made a composite, but they've reinforced it with zirconia silicate particles. Now, when I first saw that, I thought, gee, I'm not so sure about this. I started using this about 5 years ago. I've had remarkable results with it. And the great thing about Ceramash is as a composite, it tends to bend. It wears a little bit, but it bends, so it doesn't tend to fracture. All ceramics, if you put all ceramics in some areas, when they break in a spectacular fashion. And what happens is you get the patient back and you sort of see this little dark area. You take an x-ray and what do you sort of see? There's a crack through. Have the pieces debonded? No. But there's a crack. The bugs have crawled through into the dentine. You take an x-ray and what do you see under there? That incredible area. You think, oh my God, how did that get there? Most of the time it's because the pieces don't listen. The thing I like about Ceramash is it's softer. As I said, you can bond it particularly well and you can repair it. So 3M in particular have taken great note about this. And I was with the president of 3M SB. He came to our lab about 4 months ago. It was a funny story actually when he came to sort of see me. He came in the morning, he came very early in the morning. I thought, gee, I said, well, Larry, how long are you in Australia for? He said, oh, only about a day. I said, what airline did you come in on? I said, because I couldn't understand how he got there. He says, I've got my own plane. So that was interesting. 3M have got him in his own jet. He came in anyway with a really interesting talk. He talked a lot about dental materials and that 3M's push into dentistry, continued in dentistry, obviously adhesives, abrasives are a big part of their business model, but they talked a lot about he's very keen on dental materials. And they said their big push is towards soft. I thought that was very significant. because 3M are one of the biggest manufacturers of dental materials for crowns and inlays as there are, and they're heading down. So we'll talk about the Lava Ultimate in a moment, but I think that they've got onto this idea that Shofu in the Japanese market have captured, and they sort of said, now going forward, we think we should be going softer. All I know is I had to have a tooth removed recently, which was a lot of fun. Had a nasty little accident with a golf ball, but I won't sort of tell you that, and I lost my lower right six. That wasn't fun, having your six out. Anybody had a tooth taken out recently? Not much fun. Sorry? I got hit in the head with a golf ball. I went down and I cracked on a bit of my teeth and I cracked my lower right six. And went to the dentist the next day and I said, "Oh, Nick, you can fix it." You probably know Nick Hocking. He said, "Stop being a dentist and now you're going to be a patient." He took an x-ray and there was a crack all the way. I said, "Come on, there's something you can do." He said, "Open your mouth," and he gave me a block. Before I know it, what are those forceps? Anyway, he was scared stiff because he knew that I knew what he was going to do. And I was scared, he was scared. Anyway, and all of a sudden I hear crunch. I thought, I knew what that crunch was. Of course, he broke a root. The poor bugger, I felt so bad for him. And then he says, "Couplins, please." I thought, now he's going to use an elevator. Oh, my God. And then you're sitting there, oh, like this. It was interesting being on the other side. I guess the reason I'm telling you this is because I'm going to need an implant soon. And I thought about this very carefully. When we restore the implant, what do I want what sort of type of tooth structure? Because as I'm getting older, I don't want to be cracking my teeth. I'm really concerned about the type of material I'm going to have on my implant. Ceramage or Lava Ultimate. I'm not going to go ceramic. I'm not going to go full gold. I'm going to be going a soft material. There's nutcracker effect. I mean, there's all sorts of interesting discussions about that, but I am going to go soft. I'm sort of convinced that then I'm not going to break my upper right six. So this is sort of something which is near and dear to me. A typical example here of what I would do is, in the type of restorations, I'm doing a lot of onlays. And I'm sorry about the reproduction on this. I'm not quite sure how good this is. But the upper left six, I'll often try and leave as much tooth structure in as I possibly can, and I'll do onlays. And now this is a Ceramage onlay. This is probably taken about 4 or 5 years ago now. Now, why do people tend not to do onlays? Do you think people are happy to cut tooth structure away? Why do most people prepare a crown here? That's true. Pretty much what it is. First of all, the insurance rebates are higher, so a lot of dentists will be happier. But most of the time it's because it's easier. It's easy to cut down a lot of tooth structure. To try and cut a small margin and to try and plan something like this is a lot more difficult. A hell of a lot more difficult. But why I, again, feel more passionate about this and why I talk a lot about green dentistry is because if this is a 45-year-old patient, you know this is going to fail at some time. But the moment you put a full crown on there, what generally happens after the failure of a full crown? We know that there's trouble. What I'm sort of saying is here, can you buy yourself some time by doing an onlay? And if this lasts, say, 12, 15 years, as a 60-year-old, if the patient fails, then is there a chance then that I can put full coverage on then and buy our time to 60 to 75? Whereas if you go straight to full coverage, you're basically saying, that's it. Next time it's going to be either root canal, it's going to be exo, it's going to be an implant. So again, with the ageing population, I sort of feel compelled. It takes more time and it's more difficult to do. But I'm getting fantastic results with doing things like this. I'm doing more and more of these. They take time, and I say to my patients, the rebate's not going to be particularly good. I charge them almost as much as I do for a crown, but I feel really good about this. And I'm getting some really, really nice. But you've got to use something which is soft. If you're going to go ahead, you're going to put all ceramic on here, there's potentially a drama because of those cracks that can occur. Now, Lava Ultimate's just been released. As I said, it's very promising as, again, it's soft and flexible. Now, they claim it to be a resin nano ceramic. What's that? It's basically a resin. It's a reinforced resin. They're talking about it's got lithium disilica particles. So what are they actually having a go at there? EMAX. What's the big target? They want to annihilate ivoclar. And Ivoclar want to actually annihilate 3M. It's really interesting. I just wish one of them would buy the other one out. It would make it just so much easier. Maybe we can get the same development. But when you look at this stuff, this is milled. Okay, so there are sort of some interesting things. You can mill it if you've got a chair-side mill. You can use this material. E for D, there's a number of them you can use.